What's up guys, this is Ray, and today we'll be talking about the 1963 Japanese movie High and Low, directed by the legendary Kurosawa Akira and starring Mifune, Toshiro, and Nakadai Tatsuya. And this review is actually brought to you by one of my patrons over at Patreon, Q10, who requested that I do this movie for him this month. So thank you, Q10, for requesting another Kurosawa Akira movie for me to review. This is probably the second Kurosawa movie I've talked about in this channel. But for the rest of you, if you guys are new to Eiga-Man, right, I upload reviews of Japanese movies every chance I get. So if you're new to my channel and you did my content, I would appreciate a like, maybe sharing a video or two, checking out the rest of the videos on this channel, and of course, please subscribe. So High and Low, it's a movie you really can't go wrong with. It's about this businessman by the name of Gondo. And, after meeting with some of the rest of his board members, they try to band together to kick out the current president of their company, but he kind of refuses, instead having his own plans to buy out a huge percentage of the company so that way he can obtain power within the company. Anyways, he's like at the top of his game. He's about to own the largest percentage of the company until he gets a phone call from a kidnapper who says that he has kidnapped the son and he demands a very large ransom in order for the son's return. So Gondo, intent on using the money that he was going to use for this buyout, essentially this money he got from putting everything that he owns on the line, everything from his house and just everything he owns. He's about to put everything that he got so that he can get his son back, until he realizes that the kid that was actually kidnapped is actually the son of his chauffeur. So this leads into a conflict of morality, if you will, because once he learns that the one kidnapped isn't his own son, he starts to, basically take back the decision on paying out the ransom. And this escalates, as you would think, and this turns into a very excellent cat and mouse crime thriller that it's definitely deserving to watch if you're a fan of anything Kurosawa. So where can I start with the positives of High and Low? I guess the thing I always like to start with is with the performances. Mifune Toshiro as the leading man, he takes it. Whenever the spotlight is on him, he's just absolutely magnetic. The way he delivers his performance as Gondo, you're there with him every step of the way. It's like it makes you as if you're a ponder. His decisions and all. He was about to put all his money on the line so that way he can get his own son back, but then the moment he realizes that it's not his son that's kidnapped, but rather the son of an employee, it's like, do I risk it all for a son who isn't mine? It gets really intense, even in the first part of the movie, where the majority of the filming takes place in his house. It's, even though it takes place in one location, there's still a whole lot of movement, still a lot of action going on. You really don't realize you're in one location, and a lot of it is owed to the performances of Mifune and all the supporting actors. And then also from a technical standpoint, it is amazing. Everything that Kurosawa does in all his movie, he is an expert at framing all the shots with arranging all the actors and their positions, so that way not only does the story tell itself by the performances of the characters and also the dialogue, but also the way the characters are positioned in relation to each other. And as I mentioned previously, the majority of the first part of this movie takes place in the home of Gondo, but because of just the way everyone moves around and the way the camera work captures every single piece of movement, it's still very kinetic despite being in only one location. And when it comes to the second part of this movie, and you actually get into identifying who the kidnapper is, and you get into the cat and mouse section of the story, it's definitely still very engrossing, because you follow along. Like the first part of the movie is primarily on Gondo and everything in his house, but the second part follows more of the police. You get Nakadai Tatsuya and his team, and they're trying to identify the kidnapper and follow him and basically catch him in the act. And when they actually find him and they trail him, it's a very intense moment. It drags on for a little bit, but I think that dragging, the bit of dragging that this movie does, it actually makes the movie a bit more tense, in my opinion, because you got everything that's going on. You have the excellent camera work, as I mentioned earlier, and also the music to lead you through the city streets and through these dark alleys and whatnot, and you really don't know what's going to happen. And this movie definitely has a lot to say. Not only is it an excellent crime thriller, this has stuff to say about class divide, at least in Japanese society at that time. You have Gondo, who's an elite, he's wealthy, and then you have everyone else who's not an elite, who's of the working class or middle class, and the way they view people like Gondo, and the way eventually you get to meet the bad guy and his motivations. There's definitely a lot to say about this kind of divide. And as I hinted earlier in the plot synopsis, this movie explores a lot when it comes to kind of like the moral battle of paying out the ransom for your own child versus paying out the ransom for another's child, even though it's not your child, but the kidnapper is still holding you accountable. It's pretty intense, whatever the dilemma is. But when it comes to the negatives of High and Low, I think the only thing I have to say is that I wish we would have spent a little bit more time with the villain and getting to know his background, as opposed to just dumping all the information towards the latter half of the story. I wish there would have been some kind of build-up of the villain from the get-go, but I still think the way this movie delivered everything, it was still satisfactory nonetheless. But overall, what do I have to say about High and Low? As with most of Kurosawa's other movies, this is a must-watch if you haven't seen it yet. You'll like it not only if you're a fan of Kurosawa, but also if you're a fan of crime thrillers. This movie really is gripping in every sense of the word. And also, something that was interesting to me is you take the Japanese name of High and Low, it translates to, I think, heaven and hell. And all the themes that deliver the story and connect all the characters really reflect well upon that title, because when you have heaven and hell, you have light and dark, you have good and evil, and you take the main character Gondo, played by Mifune, and he's a protagonist of the story, so you want to be behind him one bit, but then there's a conflict he has with himself. Should he spend the money for a child who's not his own, or should he secure his own place in society within his company, and also of course his family and home and belongings, by refusing to pay the ransom out and instead buying out the company. And then you get the kidnapper. When you eventually meet him, of course he's the bad guy. He's kidnapped a little kid, but then you kind of see where he's coming from and kind of his struggles, and you kind of question his evilness in a way. But of course his methods by all definitions are evil, but you kind of feel for some of his motivations. And then you have even the police force. They're the police, they're the good guys, but there comes to a point where some of their methods kind of teeter on kind of sketchy dealings, like just the way they handle upon things. It's not, I don't know, at least the way I see it, it doesn't feel 100% legal at times, especially towards the latter half of the story when you actually get into the cat and mouse part of it. I feel like they kind of do a little bit of bad for the sake of good. But yes, do yourself a favor and check out High and Low. You guys will definitely not regret it. But yes, those are my thoughts on High and Low. Thank you so much to Q10 over at Patreon for recommending this movie for me to watch and review. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all those social media channels. And yeah, that's about it for me, guys. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. And thank you once again to my patrons over at Patreon for keeping this channel alive. And I'll catch you all again in the next video. Take it easy.